Discover College Soccer podcast is sponsored by VIO. VIO is the #1 AI camera solution helping players capture college recruitment videos. Check out their new starter and family options by clicking on the link in the description or visit Discover College Soccer to learn more. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Discover College Soccer. Today, I'm lucky enough to be joined by Coach Dan from Wisconsin-Whitewater. Welcome, Coach.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Matt.
Yeah, thanks for being here. Nice to see you on a bright Monday morning, although we're talking here beginning of March and it's the height of the college showcase season. I spent this last weekend at premiere down here for the ECNLR event, and then tons of coaches walking around. I'm sure you were probably out seeing a game somewhere, but with that in mind, kind of tell me, what is your timeline for your recruiting class looking like right now? I know that there's been with the FAFSA changes, things are kind of thrown a little wonky probably from what you're used to, but where are you guys at with say your class of 24, class 25? What's that looking like for you right now?
Yeah, so class of 2024, really wrapping it up. Got a couple of players who, like you said, because of the FAFSA, are delayed a little bit in decision making, which, timeline wise is just something we've got to be dealing with right now. So there's a handful that, still kind of waiting on that final decision, but for the most part, wrapping it up. 2025's is in full swing. Talking with recruits, getting them on campus, going seeing them play, all those different steps. So yeah, that's in full swing. And even 2026 is it's kind of that's the process has begun, and building that database and starting to trying to collect names and watch as much as I can and get an idea of where we want to go for 2026.
Okay. Well, in terms of looking at players, what are some events that are kind of on your must-hit list? Where do you like to go, especially this time of year?
Yeah, so typically I'm trying to get to as many different types of events as I can, whether it's our own ID camps or overnight camps that we host, going to different club sponsored showcases, or different league events, right? You mentioned one of the ECNL events, those types of events, and so trying to hit a variety so that I'm not missing anybody. I think that's the key. I don't want players to go under the radar for me where, it's a player that could have made a difference in my program and I never got out and saw him.
Yeah. And this may be a hard question to ask, but or answer, but it's one I love to ask, and that is, i- if you look at your standard player pool for any recruiting class, how much of that pool are players that you've gone out and seen at a showcase, a camp, or whatever, versus the start of them getting in your pool was because they reached out to you? What do you think that split might
Oh,
look like?
yeah, that would probably end up being more 65% of them reaching out, 35% of me starting the conversation. A lot of times when I'm going to different events, I have an idea of who I want to watch already. And part of that comes from they've already communicated with me their interest in our school. The reality is there's so many players out there, and so I want to be focusing my attention on the players that have legitimate interest in us, and so I'm focusing my attention on them. And then while I'm at those events, I'm picking up kind of that other 35% that I see that stand out to me that I want to go and reach out to and see if there's any interest there.
Love that. Awesome. Well, whether it's at a camp or you mentioned camps, whether it's at a camp or event or anything like that, kind of what makes up the hierarchy of things you're looking for in a player, things that, maybe off the field attributes, on the field attributes that make you want somebody to be there at Wisconsin-Whitewater.
Yeah, I think, first and foremost, I'm looking on the field, if they seem like a good fit for us. So I'm looking at athleticism, I'm looking at technical ability, I'm looking at decision making, positioning on the field, movement off the ball. I think that goes very underrated. And again, also just being able to have an impact on the game. And that doesn't necessarily mean always being the one that scores the goals or gets the assists, but the ones that make a true positive impact for their team. And that can be within their leadership, keeping the team going in the right direction, in a positive direction, instructing them, where to be on the field, what needs to be done. And it can be obviously being a playmaker, getting involved, getting stuck into tackles, winning aerial battles, just all those little things. And then once I feel like, yeah, this is a player that I can see helping us on the field, then it's looking at a lot of the other aspects of what they would bring to the program off the field. What type of a teammate are they? Academically, what do they bring to the table? And so those are kind of things that through additional conversations, whether it's a phone call, whether it's a campus visit, email exchange, trying to gather more information about them as individuals.
Okay. Well, in terms of the I don't know, I've completely like blanked here, which never happens, but hey, what you do this podcast 250 times, it's bound to happen. Um with the transfer portal, the international recruiting, and kind of junior colleges, because I know there's a boatload in the Wisconsin, Illinois area that with those kind of what I call non-traditional, recruiting areas, right? It's not you're going to an event and seeing freshmen or incoming freshmen. How much do you look at those non-traditional recruiting avenues? Do they come into play at all for you in your normal recruiting cycle?
Yeah, they do. Like I said, I don't want to leave any stone unturned. I would still say the bulk of my recruiting is kind of done the more traditional route. Watching, the upcoming high school players play, high school age players. But with the introduction of the transfer portal, which has obviously been in full swing for a number of years now, that's impacted things. So it's something I have to pay attention to. And then you mentioned internationals as well. It's an area that you've got to explore. Whether you are a school that is international heavy or not. So it's an area that I'm delving into as well. Just making sure that, again, any player that can have a positive impact on our program, I don't miss out on because I didn't explore it.
No, and I think that's a great way to do it, especially at the D3 level, right? So, well, let's shift
Hmm.
gears a little, talk about the school. I'm sure some folks not familiar with Wisconsin-Whitewater. You guys are kind of just to the southwest of Milwaukee, if I'm not mistaken. Um,
Hmm.
so you've got a good insight because you're an alum, if I'm not mistaken, as well as a coach. So, what are some of the things that you love about the school? Some things that you find are awesome that maybe we wouldn't even know by going through the website?
Yeah, so you are correct. I went to Whitewater, played here, got my undergrad and my graduate work done here. My wife also actually is an alum, played on the women's soccer team, which is how we met. And so my brother actually also played for the men's team right after I did. So we've got this whole thing here, family connections. But yeah, so Whitewater was a school that on my radar coming through. It really stood out to me when I was going through the recruiting process myself. It had a high academic standard. I was interested in business. It's a great business program. Um, and then athletically, just athletics in general are very successful here. They're a big deal. People take them very seriously and have a lot of success in them. And the men's and women's soccer programs are no exception. And so, being able to come to a school that had a high level academic standard for what I wanted, high athletic success, and then the size of the school, I think, is something that speaks to a lot of people as well. We are kind of that happy medium between the small schools and the enormous schools. We have about 11,000 undergraduate students. And so, larger for most D3s that you're going to talk with. So it's kind of that happy medium between the ones that want a little bit more to their college experience, things to do, people to meet, um, but don't necessarily want to be overwhelmed by a mini city, essentially, like some campuses, right? So we're kind of that perfect medium for a lot of people. And I think that's the type of athlete that we get here are the high level athletes that can play at any level, but choose to come to Whitewater for the reasons that I mentioned before.
No, that makes sense. Now, I've talked to a few other schools that are, I guess, for lack of a better term, maybe branch campuses, right?
Mhm.
Recently talked to Indiana University, South Bend, right? So they're
Mhm.
tied in with IU, but in a different location. I know there's a bunch of different Wisconsin blank fill in the city type
Yeah.
schools right there. Is it Are they all standalone campuses or are they tied into the main University of Wisconsin? I know they're maybe part of the University of Wisconsin system, but is there any kind of you know, different ways the schools are working together or part of one another? Is that anything at all?
Yeah, so the Wisconsin school system, university system is actually really fantastic. So like you mentioned, there's a lot of different schools within that system throughout our state, at all divisions, Division One, Division Two, and Division Three. And so we all are separate, really, entities. We have our own separate campuses, we have our own separate facilities, we're doing our own thing, but we still have collaboration, in different aspects when it comes to communicating about the needs of the students that we service. But in essence, we're really our own separate entities.
Okay. Well, part of, succeeding at the collegiate level is in the classroom, not only on the soccer field. So what kind of support systems and what do you guys does the school offer and what do you guys do specifically to make sure that the students have success both on the field and off?
Yeah, so we do a really great job as a university and as well as an athletic department, providing different services for our students and our student athletes. Tutoring is a big one. Everybody throughout their time has had a class, whether you've gone through college or are currently going through it, where you struggled a little bit, and it was beneficial to get some additional help outside of the classroom. And so that's something that's provided, easily accessible, and again, kind of provided as part of you being a student here at Whitewater. So I know a lot of our players access that. And then it's also beneficial. We have different mental health professionals available to our students, as well as nutritionists. We have specifically within our program, we have an athletic trainer that works with our team, does a great job. Again, helping them physically and mentally stay engaged and on the field in a positive way. So those are all kind of areas that our players utilize and have access to, which is really really awesome.
Yeah, sounds like it. Well, in terms of a student's day to day, right? Especially freshmen, they're not okay. What am I going to be doing when I get to college? So let's rewind it back. Let's say we're in the middle of your conference schedule. Um, what would a typical week look like for one of your players in terms of winter classes and training and meals and the game cadence and all that kind of stuff?
Yes. So we're gonna a typical week. You're gonna have two games, usually a weekday and a weekend game, and then you'll have three training sessions, and then usually we also have a strength and conditioning coach that works with our program. So one to two times a week, kind of just depending on the schedule that week. You're getting in with them as well. In season, you're really looking at maintaining your levels, as well as helping with injury prevention. And then you're going to have 2 days of rest. For me, those days off are really important, physically, mentally, to be able to manage your course load, and be successful in the classroom, have a social life, and have a really positive overall college experience, on and off the field, right? So, during the day, um, in the mornings, early afternoons is when you're going to be having your classes. We have our trainings early evening, late afternoon, going 4 to 6, and then our games, if it's on a weekday, usually in the evenings. Weekends are usually kind of midday.
Okay. Well, let's shift gears, talk a little bit more about the team. In terms of a roster size, is there one that you find is ideal that you guys are trying to hit each year?
Yeah, so we're going to be right around 30 players each year. Maybe a little bit less, a little bit over, just kind of depending on the year, but right around 30. For me, it's that sweet spot where you have enough on your roster to be able to develop a little bit, to be able to accomplish everything you want in training sessions. I think it's really valuable to be able to play 11 aside in training sessions and really implement in a game-like situation all the things that you've been working on throughout the week and throughout the training session. Um, and then if you run, it's just part of the nature of the business, right? You have injuries that come up, and you've got players that can plug right in, and you don't feel like you're gonna be shorthanded. But it's not such a large roster where we run into situations where players just don't really feel like they're part of what we're all about and what we're doing. Everybody travels, everybody trains together. So we don't really have a JV or reserve team, so to speak. So, it's one group. We all do things together, and we find success and learn from failure together.
Oh, that's fantastic. Well, another part of a roster is the coaching staff. So talk to me about how big is your staff? What role does everybody play? And I think you mentioned a little bit before, but what are some of the other support staff, maybe in the athletic department, that help out with the team?
Yeah, so myself, obviously, head coach, and then I have an assistant coach. She's fantastic. Has been with me really since I took over this role, and helps a lot with running of training sessions, communicating with players. She's helped to implement some of our injury prevention, during our warm up, trying to keep players healthy and on the field, right? So she does a great job that way. We have a goalkeeper coach coming in, which I'm really excited about. And obviously, goalkeepers are a unique position that needs some specialized training. So we've got that coming in, which I'm really excited about. And I did mention the strength and conditioning coach as well, that works with our team throughout the year. So, helps them out that way in the weight room, making sure that we're getting stronger, getting quicker, getting faster, improving our endurance, all those good things. And then our athletic trainer who's working with us to help keep them on the field, and helping them through any sort of injuries that they do go through in rehabilitation. And then we've got nutritionists within the athletic department and mental health professionals as well that are available to them.
Great. Well, in terms of you as the head man, how are you going to describe kind of your style of coaching, the style of play you're looking to implement?
Yeah, so I would say I'm very detail orientated, and I take a balanced approach to most things. So that's kind of how I approach a game as well. My biggest thing with my players is instructing them, hey, we have a plan. This is how we want to play, but you also have to be adaptive to the situation. Recognize what the opponent's doing, recognize the moments in the game, whether it's the score, whether it's the time, whether, no matter what's kind of going on, you've got to make adjustments on the fly and make good decisions. And so taking advantage of what the opponent is giving you is big for me. So I'm looking for players that can think for themselves, can think on the fly, take instruction, but then be able to make the necessary adjustments on the fly. So think critically, right? But looking for us to press higher up the pitch, win the ball back in good areas when we can, But if we do get broken down, I expect everybody to recover, get our numbers behind the ball, and make it difficult for them to break us down any further, right? And then when we win the ball, I always tell them, hey, if you can go within 3 to 4 passes and get a quality scoring opportunity from that, don't hesitate. Let's go for it, right? You can catch the other team in that transition moment. Great. But if it's not on, don't force it. And let's try to work the ball around, get our numbers forward, and break them down from there. No cheap giveaways.
Yeah, no, never want that. Well, we're like I said, we're talking here in March, so it's the off season. Can you just give me a quick overview of what your kind of spring season is going to look like for the players?
Yeah, so we're going to be having training sessions start up here in a few weeks, actually, which is pretty exciting. Weather's starting to turn, get a little bit nicer, so I think everybody's getting anxious to get out there. So we'll have trainings 3 times a week. Starting towards the tail end of March and into April, throughout April. So we'll have training sessions, and then we'll have a couple of scrimmages in there as well. An alumni game, which is always exciting to bring people back. Get some familiar faces back on campus, and I know they always love jumping out there and showing that they can still play, right? I know I always enjoyed that. So yeah, so that's kind of the spring coming up here. Like I said, in the next couple of weeks, and so kind of excited to get back to working with the players and kind of continuing what we had started to build during the fall season. So, because those of you that aren't aware, I took over the program in April, so coming up on a year now. And so being able to see the progress that this team made from the start of preseason to the end of the season was really exciting, as well, to know that we've got something to build upon. And so kind of just continuing that momentum going into the spring season.
Yeah, that's great. Well, you've been super generous with your time. Don't want to keep you too long, but I got one last question for you, and that is if you had one piece of advice, if you could boil it down to just one, what piece of advice about the overall college recruiting process would you want players, parents, families going through this process to know?
Don't limit yourself. Explore your options, explore your opportunities. Um, don't don't say no until you've really looked into what the schools have to offer, because you never know later down the line what's going to be what you really want, right? If you start this process, if you're one of those players that start this process early, and you're looking into schools even as early as a freshman or a sophomore, your needs and wants can change. And so if you've closed some doors already, you could find yourself in a position where you're really kicking yourself because you had some options that you took away from yourself before you really knew that you wanted it.
Absolutely. As a parent of a sophomore, I can attest to that. Well, Coach, really appreciate the time. Wish you the best of luck here in your spring season as well as the upcoming fall. And if you get to any recruiting events down here in Florida, give me a shout. All right.
That sounds great. Thanks, Matt. Really
Th-
appreciate it.
Thanks, Dan. Hi, everybody. It's Matt from Discover College Soccer. I hope you're enjoying the podcast, whether that's on YouTube or your favorite podcast platform. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button. I also wanted to let you know about the Discover College Soccer Study Table. This is our brand new online portal that is complete with a 14-part online course giving you all of the ins and outs of the college soccer recruiting process. There's also a wealth of resources such as checklists, templates. There's the spreadsheets that have every soccer program in the country along with their coaches, their contact information, their social media information, some basic stats about the school, and more. Plus, there's an online community where you can ask your questions, share your wins, your losses, any questions that you may have around the college soccer recruiting process. It's all there at the Discover College Soccer study table that you can find at discovercollegesoccer.com/study table, and hopefully we will see you there.